Okay, let's jump into audience questions for the week. The first is, hey, David, how likely is violence after the November election? So there's a few different aspects to this question. You're not clarifying violence against or by which group. And I think there's a few different scenarios that could lead to violence. Now, the most likely scenario that leads to violence is Trump claims it was rigged and his supporters take to the streets with guns. That would be the top, like, red alert violence possibility in my mind. Are there scenarios in which, there are right wingers who seem to be suggesting that if Trump gets reelected, the left is going to become so out of control, furious, that the left will start rioting and burning things to the ground and looting and all of this stuff. That's not really what I'm afraid of. I think that if Donald Trump were to get reelected, it'll sort of be a 50-50 effect. Some people, much like when Trump was first elected in November of 2016, will be outraged and will take to the streets. And as you remember from November of 2016, those were widely peaceful protests. November, December 2016. I don't even remember incidents, nationwide protests, hundreds and hundreds of thousands of people protesting. And, you could probably find some news story of some anecdote, but it was not part of the narrative. Very different than the narrative that the right created around the George Floyd protests. So some people on the left, certainly if Trump is reelected, they will be out there protesting. But there's also going to be a lot of people on the left who are just totally deflated. And I expect a portion of the left will check out of politics for maybe not 4 years, but certainly until the 2022 midterm. And then we'll get involved in the 2024 election relatively late because it will be, listen, I understand. I've said before, Trump is better for my business, but he's terrible for the country. And so I am fine with my business not doing as well if it's good for the country. But if it's another 4 years of Trump, I'm going to certainly be deflated. And I know there are lots of people on the left who will be as well. And I would not be shocked for a bunch of those people to check out. So I don't believe there's a real risk of violence if Trump wins. Now, if Trump loses, there's a couple different scenarios. There's Trump loses by an insane margin, like electorally, it's a huge margin and popular vote. I don't think that the right is likely to become too violent in that case. Trump could claim it's obviously rigged because I never would have lost by this much. But I think the truth is that if both the popular vote and the electoral vote are big margins for Biden, I think that by and large, the Trumpists will just say, wow, we just lost. And they will essentially disappear for some period of time. I don't think they're likely to be violent in that case. I think the two scenarios for violence would be big popular vote win, but it's really tight electorally. And Trump loses by just like one or two states and claims it's rigged. I think that scenario could certainly lead to violence. And then I think the one that is most likely to lead to Trumpists out in the streets is that everything is close and Trump loses, both electorally and popular vote, and says it was rigged. And that's the one where I would worry about, the so-called gun people that Donald Trump has referred to, going out there and doing some horrible things. I believe it will be relatively short-lived. If and when it becomes clear that Trump just lost and no Secretary of State is going to save him, and that even if he could file some lawsuit to get a recount or even flip one state, that it won't be enough in the scenario where it's a bigger victory for Joe Biden, if indeed that happens, I think that the violence will be quelled relatively quickly. And by inauguration time, I believe it will essentially be over. Now, whether we see more radical extremists activated if Trump is removed, that's a fair question, which I'd have to think about a little more. But I think that the most likely scenario for violence is a Trump loss that is not a major loss, that it's close, and Trump claims it's rigged, maybe refuses to concede and continues to argue that either vote by mail went wrong or something like that. That's the scenario that to me lends itself most to violence in the streets. And I hope that authorities will be ready and prepared to deal with that.